I still remember that feeling clearly, like a deep scar in my heart that will never fade. I am Steven Morales, 32 years old, an ordinary man trying to hold on to life in San Antonio, Texas. My job was warehouse operations manager at a logistics company called Translogix. Not some grand dream job, but it was stable, enough to pay my bills and send a little money home to my parents each month. I always prided myself on being careful, checking every shipment, scheduling everything in detail, making sure it all ran on time. But then an internal incident changed everything, and I was blatantly framed. That day, the San Antonio heat was scorching. A large shipment, fragile electronics from a VIP client, was being delivered. I had planned the transport meticulously, a safe route, a specialized truck, even checked the weather to avoid storms. But Jack, my bootlicking coworker who was jealous because I got promoted before him, secretly changed everything. He sent an email to the driver telling him to take a shortcut to save time and costs, without saying a word to me. I only found out when the shipment arrived. Half of it had been shaken too violently, screens shattered, circuit boards ruined. The client went ballistic, calling and yelling, demanding thousands of dollars in compensation. The company was in chaos, and an internal meeting was called immediately. I walked into the meeting room with my heart pounding, cold sweat breaking out despite the air conditioning blasting at full power. My boss, Mr. Harlan, sat at the head of the table with a grim expression, holding the report like a death sentence. Jack sat next to him, eyes downcast, but I knew he was smirking inside. "Steven, explain yourself," Mr. Harlan said, his voice ice cold. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "Sir, this wasn't my fault. Jack changed the route on his own. I have the email as proof. He sent it to the driver without going through me. I warned him about the risks, but he ignored it." I held up my phone, opened the email file, zoomed in so everyone could see clearly. My heart raced faster, hoping justice would prevail, that they would see the truth. But then Jack spoke up, his voice smooth. "Steven is the manager. He bears primary responsibility. I was just following his suggestion. Maybe he forgot." He even dragged in a few coworkers as witnesses, the guys who always went drinking with him, and they nodded vigorously. "Yeah, Jack's right." Blood rushed to my face, my throat tightened. "No. This is clear evidence," I shouted, but Mr. Harlan shook his head. "We've reviewed it. You're responsible, Steven. The company has to compensate the client, and you'll be fined $5,000 deducted from your final paycheck." $5,000? That was money I'd saved for 3 months, now gone because of a lie. Blood rushed to my face again, my throat tightened. I knew Mr. Harlan favored Jack because he was the nephew of a major shareholder. Where was justice? I left the meeting room with heavy steps, feeling like the whole world was laughing at me. The days that followed were a nightmare. I tried to gather more evidence, printing emails, recording conversations with the driver, even writing a formal complaint to the board. Every night I lay awake, my mind spinning with worst-case scenarios, losing my job, losing my home, losing everything. My heart raced every time I opened a company email, fearing bad news. And then the fateful Wednesday arrived. I walked into the office. The atmosphere was heavy. Mr. Harlan held the termination paper with an emotionless face. "Steven, we've decided to terminate your contract," he said, his voice flat like he was reading the weather report. I didn't cry, didn't yell, just nodded. I understand. But inside I was shattering. I quietly packed my personal belongings. My desk was bare, an old cracked coffee mug, a few notebooks with schedules, and a family photo I rarely looked at. My parents and younger brother Mateo smiling brightly. Coworkers looked at me coldly. Some whispered, "Told you he finally got fired. How do you let something like that happen as a manager?" I heard it all but didn't react. I carried the box out of the company. The blazing San Antonio sun hit my face, stinging my eyes. On the bus ride home, I sat curled up in the corner, my mind blank. What now? No job, no money, just shame. Back at my tiny rented apartment on the outskirts, moldy walls, constant traffic noise all night, I pushed the door open, threw the box on the floor, and collapsed onto the old sofa. Harsh reality hit immediately like a punch in the face. I opened my banking app. Only $200 left. 3 months behind on rent, totaling $2,100. The landlord had warned me twice, her voice growing harsher. Credit card nearing its $3,000 limit with sky-high interest. Overdue utilities piling up. $150 electricity, $80 water, $70 gas. Even so, I had still sent money home to my parents every month. My parents, Carlos and Rosa Morales, lived in an old neighborhood in San Antonio. Not wealthy, but I always felt it was my duty. Even if I had to borrow from friends or cut back on food, I sent it. Now what? No income, no money to send this month. My chest felt heavy like a rock pressing down, making it hard to breathe. I sat there, pulling out a notebook to calculate every figure, my pen shaking on the paper. Rent debt, credit card near max, bills. I tried to think of options. If I cut food to just instant noodles and bread, maybe last 2 weeks. Borrow more from friends. But who'd lend now? I already owe them $500. I considered selling things. My old laptop might get some cash, but without it, how would I job hunt? Every option led to a dead end. No income, no real savings. The last $1,000 had gone to last month's credit card payment. I clutched my head, sweat pouring even though it was evening. Anxiety overwhelmed me. I imagined being evicted, wandering the streets, sleeping under a bridge. No, I had to pull myself together. I wiped my face, stood up, opened my laptop, and started applying for jobs. The following days were hell on earth. I applied everywhere. Big and small logistics companies, warehouses, even delivery driver positions with lower pay. I printed resumes, edited every word, emphasizing my 8 years of industry experience. But rejection after rejection. First interview at a small downtown company. I arrived early wearing my old but clean suit, forcing a smile. The recruiter, a middle-aged woman, scanned my resume. Your record shows a recent termination. Why? I explained clearly about the incident and evidence, but she shook her head. We need someone reliable. Thank you. I left with my heart racing. Heavy rain poured down, soaking me completely. Second, third interviews, despair grew deeper. The job market was bleak, post-pandemic recession, warehouse management positions were nearly frozen. Each rejection brought heavier failure. I'd collapse on the bed, gasping, thinking of a dark future. No appetite, no sleep. I lost 5 pounds in a week. At the end of the month, everything collapsed completely. The landlord, Mrs. Ramirez, an irritable old woman with white hair, pounded on the door at 8 p.m. Stephen, you have to leave now. No more extensions. You owe too much, she yelled, face red, keys jingling in her hand. I opened the door, voice trembling. Mrs. Ramirez, just a few more days. I'm job hunting, I'll pay everything. But she shook her head. No, you keep promising and never pay. Get out or I'll call the police. I packed my few belongings. Some clothes, laptop, old suitcase. No money in my pocket, phone battery dying. Nowhere to go. I stood in the room, tears streaming down. Is this what real despair feels like? No close friends, no girlfriend, just me fighting alone. In that moment, in the dark room, I thought of my parents. It was the only place left, even after years of distance. They always favored my younger brother, Mateo. He was smart, had a good job, spoiled since childhood while I had to fend for myself. But surely they wouldn't let their son starve. With slim hope, I drove my old car, a 1990 Ford, engine rattling like it was about to die, back to my parents' house. The long drive through dark streets, mood heavy as lead. Ashamed to return as a failure, but hoping they'd let me stay temporarily. The car nearly broke down midway, smoke from the hood. I pulled over, fixed it hastily, hands shaking, fearing being stranded at night. Finally, I turned onto the familiar street, run-down houses, dim yellow streetlights casting a cold welcome. When I pushed the door open, the familiar smell of food hit me. Hot tortillas, grilled meat, and cheerful laughter. My parents were chatting happily with Mateo like a truly happy family. Mateo, 28, in a clean shirt, telling work stories with a bright smile. They were surprised to see me appear at dinner time. Stephen, Why are you here so suddenly? My mother, Rosa, asked, voice slightly worried but quickly turning suspicious. My father, Carlos, stopped chewing, staring at me. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. I lost my job, Mom and Dad. A co-worker sabotaged me. Now I've lost my apartment too. I'm asking to stay just a few days while I find something new. I explained clearly, keeping a humble and dignified attitude, not wanting to look like a beggar. But my father exploded immediately, face turning red, slamming the table. Lost your job? Again? You're useless, Stephen. Weak. That's why people walk all over you. This proves you've been a failure since you were little, born to lose. His words cut my heart like knives. The pain nearly brought me to my knees. My mother didn't stop him. Instead, she piled on, voice shrill. You plan to be a parasite. You're a family disgrace. Look at Mateo. He's been independent forever, never disappointed us. Mateo smirked mockingly. Big brother, your tragedy is hilarious. Coming here to beg, or planning to mooch and keep being a burden? In that moment, I realized the warmth I'd sensed earlier, the laughter, food smells, cozy light, had never been for me. I was just an extra, showing up at the wrong place, wrong time. My parents disowned me, kicking me out. Get out and never come back. We don't have a son like you, my father shouted, pointing at the door. I turned silently, walked out into the night, stumbling down the steps, legs heavy as lead. For the first time, I realized I truly had no family to return to. The car started with its rattling noise. I drove aimlessly through the late night, tears blurring the streets, not knowing where the future would take me. I drove that old car away from the familiar street, the place I had once thought was my last refuge of peace. My mind was almost unconscious, completely blank. No destination, no plan at all. I just let the road pull me forward like a boat drifting aimlessly on the open sea. The dim yellow streetlights slid past the car windows, casting faint streaks of light across my face, reflecting the pain gnawing at me from within. My heart beat slowly, heavily, as if all my strength had been drained after that confrontation. Tears still streamed down my cheeks, but I didn't wipe them away. I let them dry naturally. San Antonio at night was unusually quiet, with only the rattling engine noise and the wind whistling through the cracked window. I thought about pulling over somewhere to sleep in the car, but then dismissed the idea. What was the point of sleeping when my mind kept spinning with my father's scolding words, Mateo's mocking laughter, and my mother's cold gaze? The farther I drove, the more my emotions began to surge like an undercurrent. Not anger, but a chilling emptiness. Only after the door had closed behind me did I realize I had placed my hope in the wrong place, and that bitterness came slowly but deeply. Then long-buried memories suddenly stirred, slipping through the numb shell, and the image of my grandfather, Antonio Morales, emerged clearer than anyone else. My grandfather, the tall man with snow-white hair and a warm smile, had always been my only support in a childhood full of deprivation. He wasn't wealthy, just an ordinary auto mechanic in the old neighborhood, but he had a big heart, large enough to embrace a neglected grandson like me. I remember vividly those sweltering summer afternoons in San Antonio when I was 8 years old. My parents were busy with work, or more accurately, busy with Mateo, the newborn brother they spoiled like a treasure. I was often sent to my grandfather's house, not because they thought it was good for me, but because it was the most convenient way for them to avoid worrying about me. He welcomed me with a tight hug, the faint smell of motor oil and soap lingering. My grandson is here. Want to help me fix cars today? He'd smile and pull me into the tiny garage behind his house. Those afternoons I sat beside him, learning to tighten bolts, change tires, listening to him tell stories about his life. He talked about his homeland in Mexico, his adventures in youth, and always ended with advice. Life isn't fair, Stephen, but you have to be strong. Don't let anyone define your worth. He never compared me to Mateo, never criticized me for not excelling in school or sports. To him, I was Stephen, the grandson he loved unconditionally. But those beautiful memories were always intertwined with pain from my family. I remember my 10th birthday. My parents threw a big party for Mateo, even though his birthday had passed 2 months earlier. They bought cake, balloons, invited friends. For me, they offered only a hurried wish. I ran to my grandfather's house sobbing. He hugged me, wiped my tears. "Don't be sad, my dear boy. Grandpa has a gift for you." He gave me a toy car he'd made himself from scrap wood, painted bright red. "This is your car. No one can take it away." In that moment, I felt truly loved, not because of achievements or comparisons. He was the only one who saw my loneliness, who understood that behind my quiet exterior, I was enduring favoritism from my own parents. As the emotions rose higher, I slowed the car, my heart racing with the flood of memories. Late at night, the streets were deserted, only the occasional truck passing with blinding headlights. I thought of my grandfather's parting words 8 years ago before he died of heart disease. It was a rainy evening. He lay in the hospital bed, gripping my hand tightly. His voice was weak but firm. "Stephen, if one day you fall into utter deadlock, despair with no way out, open the chest I left for you. It's something I saved just for you." I didn't fully understand then, just nodded, thinking it was the illness speaking. He gave me the small locked chest and said, "The code is your birthday. Don't open it early, only when you truly need it." I kept it for years, stuffed at the bottom of my suitcase like a memento, never touching it for fear of disappointing him. Now, in the dead of night, those words echoed like a whisper from the past. What did I have left to lose? Job gone, home gone, family gone. This was the utter deadlock he meant. My heart pounded, a mix of excitement and faint hope. I decided to pull over on a deserted roadside, a suburban road lined with thick bushes and the incessant chirping of insects. Engine off. Darkness enveloped everything, only faint moonlight filtering through the windshield. I took a deep breath to steady myself, then opened the trunk. My meager belongings from the apartment. A few clothes, laptop, and the old suitcase that had followed me through many moves. My hands shook as I pulled out the suitcase, unlocked it, and rummaged at the bottom. My heart beat faster, as if digging for buried treasure. "Where is it? Don't tell me I threw it away," I whispered to myself, sweat breaking out despite the cool night. Finally, beneath the wrinkled clothes, I lifted the small chest covered in dust. It was heavier than I remembered, about the size of a shoebox, its once polished wooden surface now dulled with age. I brushed off the dust. It flew up in a cloud, making me cough. Back in the driver's seat, I turned on the interior light. The weak yellow glow illuminated the chest. The code was my birthday. My hands trembled slightly as I turned the dials, heart pounding like a drum. What if I don't open it? What if it's just old memories inside? I hesitated, but thinking of my current situation, no money, no place to stay, I pressed firmly. The lock clicked open with a dry snap, like a whisper from the grave. I nearly dropped the chest in excitement. The lid opened slowly, revealing a sleek black bank card placed neatly inside, gleaming under the light, and a handwritten letter yellowed with age, the paper faded but bearing my grandfather's familiar script. I picked up the letter first, hands still shaking, and read it in the dim roadside light. The words appeared one by one, the handwriting shaky but full of love. "My dear Stephen, if you're reading this letter, it means you've reached the moment you need it most. I quietly watched everything as you grew up. I know the injustices you endured, your parents' favoritism toward Mateo, their indifference when you needed help, the hurts you never spoke of for fear of upsetting them. You were never weak, my grandson. You're stronger than anyone I know. You just never had a fair family, one where everyone is loved equally." I read with tears welling up, whispering the words aloud. He continued in detail. "I remember the times you ran to the garage crying because you were unfairly scolded because you didn't get toys like your brother. I saw you become independent young, working odd jobs to support yourself, sending money home even when you were struggling. Your parents were wrong, but I couldn't change them. This chest isn't a reward. It's the final protection I could give to the grandson I believed in most. Use it to start over, Stephen. I'm proud of you. I sat frozen in the driver's seat, emotions tangled between deep emotion and bewilderment. Moved because my grandfather understood me better than anyone, even better than myself. Bewildered by the black card still in the chest, a premium bank card with a gleaming logo. What was this? Money? An inheritance? I picked it up, turning it over, my heart racing faster than ever. My life might be about to take a completely different turn, though I had no idea what lay ahead. That night, sitting in the car on the empty road, I felt a faint spark of hope, but also full of anxiety. Was this a lifeline, or just one final illusion? The memories of my grandfather were the only thing keeping me alert in that moment. Grandfather Antonio wasn't just a grandfather. He was like a second father. When I was 12, my parents fought bitterly over money, and I was sent to live with him for a full month. He taught me to fix cars, but more than that, he taught me about life. You see, Stephen, a broken car can be fixed, but a broken heart is harder. Don't let anyone break your heart. He told stories about my grandmother who died young and how he overcame the pain through work and family love. He always made time for me, listening to my stories about school, about being bullied for wearing old clothes. You don't need wealth to be happy. Just know your own worth. Those words echoed now, making me sob in the car. But the memories were also full of pain. I remembered when he was seriously ill. My parents only visited briefly because all their attention and money went to Mateo's short study abroad trip. I stayed by his side the whole time, holding his hand until the end. Before closing his eyes, he whispered, "The chest. Remember, Stephen." I nodded through tears but didn't fully understand then. Now I did. He had foreseen my future, seen how injustice would push me to the brink. As I opened the chest, I felt he was there beside me like a protective spirit. Tears still lingered on my cheeks, but now they weren't just for sorrow. They were for the warmth of my grandfather's letter and the vague anxiety about what was coming. I realized that from this moment my life might be about to take a completely different direction, though I had no idea what awaited. A future full of surprises or just another disappointment. That night, sleep came fitfully, filled with dreams of my grandfather smiling from the past, and a foggy future where everything could change in an instant. The next morning, I woke up in the back seat of my old car, my body aching from the cramped sleeping position. The San Antonio sunlight filtered through the windows, blindingly bright, forcing me to squint. My mind was still heavy from the fitful sleep, haunted by recurring dreams of my grandfather. He smiled kindly, pointed to the chest, then vanished into the darkness. I sat up, wiped my face with my sleeve, and looked around the deserted public parking lot. Nothing had changed. I was still me, still in the rattling car, still with my meager bag of belongings. But in my pocket, the black card and my grandfather's letter were quietly present, like a reminder that today might be different. I took the black card to the bank with a mix of skepticism and clinging to a faint hope. I thought that whatever amount my grandfather had left, even if it was just a few $100s or at best a few thousand, would help me survive this difficult period. Rent a cheap room, buy food, look for a job, that would be enough. I drove to the nearest bank branch, a modern glass building in downtown San Antonio where I had opened my payroll account a few years ago. My heart pounded as I walked in. The cool air from the air conditioning rushed over me, mixed with the smell of paperwork and coffee. The teller counters were busy, people queuing and murmuring. I chose the shortest line, standing behind an elderly woman withdrawing money. My hand gripped the black card tightly in my pocket, sweat breaking out even though it wasn't hot yet. What if there's nothing? Or it's just an expired old card, I wondered, my legs trembling with anxiety. Finally, it was my turn. The teller, a young woman named Maria, according to her name tag, smiled politely. "Hello, sir. How can I help you?" I took a deep breath, pulled out the card, and placed it on the counter. "Hi. I have this card left to me by my grandfather. I'd like to check the linked account. My voice shook a little as I tried to stay calm. Maria took the card, turned it over, then swiped it through the reader. Her expression changed noticeably, from polite to cautious, her eyes widening. She looked at me more closely, then whispered something to the colleague next to her. My heart raced faster, worry surging. Is there a problem? Is it fake? I thought, cold sweat breaking out on my back. Maria stood up. Please wait a moment. I need to contact the manager. She dialed an internal number, her voice soft but urgent. I stood there, feeling like every eye in the bank was on me. I was so confused and anxious that I wondered if this was life's final joke on me. Less than 2 minutes later, the bank manager appeared quickly from the back door. A middle-aged man in a neat suit named Mr. Thompson, according to his tag. He took the card from Maria, examined it carefully under a magnifying glass, then looked at me with respect and seriousness. Mr. Morales, isn't it? Please follow me to a private room. His voice was calm, but there was something unusual, not the usual polite tone. I nodded and followed him down the hallway, my heart pounding like a drum. The private room was small but luxurious, soft leather chairs, a polished wooden desk. I sat down, gripping the armrests tightly, waiting. What is this? Why is this happening? I wondered, my throat dry with nervousness. There, Mr. Thompson sat across from me and placed the card on the desk. Stephen, this is a premium bank card linked to a legitimate inheritance account established in the name of Antonio Morales. He set up this account many years ago and designated you as the sole beneficiary. I listened, but my mind was still foggy. Inheritance? Premium account? I nodded, my voice small. Yes, my grandfather left it to me. But what's in it? Mr. Thompson smiled faintly and opened his laptop. Let me check the details. Do you have ID? I handed over my driver's license. He entered the information, then paused, eyes widening. Oh, this is a substantial amount. My heart pounded harder, excitement rising. He turned the screen toward me. It contains over 4.2 million US dollars in cash, along with full ownership of an associated portfolio of investments in real estate. The total value exceeds 9 million US dollars, including stocks, bonds, and several properties in Texas and Mexico. I was completely stunned, my mind blank. $4.2 million? Over $9 million total? The numbers echoed in my head like explosions. I couldn't immediately process the reality that what my grandfather had left far exceeded anything I could have imagined. Impossible. He was just a mechanic, I whispered, my voice trembling. Mr. Thompson nodded. He invested wisely throughout his life, starting small and building up. Everything is legal, and now it all belongs to you. As Mr. Thompson explained, I asked, how did my grandfather have so much money? He replied, he invested in stocks from a young age, bought cheap land, and sold it for profit. All records are clear. I was shocked. My grandfather had always lived simply, never boasting. I remembered when he gave me $20 to buy books and my parents scolded him. Don't spoil him. But he just smiled. He deserves it. Now I understood. He had been preparing for me all along. I sat there, frozen, tears streaming down again. Not from sadness, but from overwhelming shock. My life, from that of a failure, had suddenly turned me into a millionaire. Excitement mixed with fear. Was this a mistake? Afterward, we completed the identity verification, inheritance rights, and transfer procedures. I signed the papers with trembling hands, listening as he explained the accounts and management. Everything happened quickly and professionally, but to me it felt like a dream. Finally, I officially became the full owner of everything grandfather Antonio had quietly accumulated over his lifetime. Mr. Thompson shook my hand. Congratulations, Stephen. This is a new beginning. I nodded and left the bank in a daze, my feet still touching the ground, but feeling as if my life had been thrust onto a completely different path in just one morning. Sitting in the car, I didn't start the engine right away, just sat there, staring at the now activated card. A rush of joy and overwhelm flooded me. For the first time, I realized I was no longer at the bottom of society, no longer crushed by bills or contemptuous looks. My heart raced, my breathing quickened. Was I really rich now? I could buy a house, a car, live without debt. But then, in that moment, memories of my impoverished childhood crashed over me like a flood, choking me up. I remembered the years of material deprivation when my parents poured all their resources into Mateo. From a young age, I knew what poverty was. We lived in a San Antonio slum, moldy walls, a leaking roof whenever it rained. My father worked construction, my mother sewed at home. Money was always tight, but the best of everything always went to Mateo, my younger brother, the spoiled baby of the family. For his birthday, they bought a big cake, invited friends. For mine, just a boiled egg and a quick wish. New clothes? Always for Mateo. I wore hand-me-downs full of holes. Extra classes? Mateo got English lessons. I studied alone at the library. I grew up in that deprivation, fending for myself, enduring silently and maturing on my own. I didn't resent it, just accepted it as my fate. It wasn't just material neglect. I grew up lacking affection too. My parents never hugged me when I cried, never praised me for good grades. "You have to be independent. Don't be a burden," my father often said. I remember coming home from school after being bullied, face swollen. My mother just glanced, "Handle it yourself. Don't tattle." Mateo was different. One tear from him and the whole family rushed to comfort him. I started working early to support myself and contribute to the family as an obvious duty. At 15, I washed dishes at a restaurant until late, sending money home. "Here's $50. Use it, Mom and Dad," I'd say, even when I was starving. They took it without thanks, treating it as expected. In those dark years, Grandfather Antonio was the only one who sheltered me, listened, and recognized my worth. He never saw me as a burden or a failure. Those afternoons in the garage, he taught me not just about cars, but about life. "You have your own value, Stephen. Don't let anyone make you doubt it." He fed me, let me sleep over when my parents fought, and always encouraged me. "You'll do great things. I believe in you." When he was sick, I stayed by his side until the end, holding his hand. "Thank you, my grandson," he whispered, and I cried like rain. Now, sitting in the car, I gripped the steering wheel tightly, silently thanking him. "Thank you, Grandpa. You saved me." Tears fell again, but this time they were tears of gratitude. I drove on in a state of shock and clarity, understanding that from this moment forward, my life would no longer be the story of an abandoned man. The streets of San Antonio now felt fresh, the sunlight golden and brilliant, the car horns pleasant to the ear. I thought about the future: buy a house, start a company, or just live without worry. I stopped at a cafe, ordered a hot black coffee, and sat thinking. This money wasn't for squandering. My grandfather had saved it over a lifetime. I had to use it wisely. But first I needed to breathe, to digest this truth. Life had changed in a single morning. Who would have thought? I sat in the cafe for a long time, watching people pass by outside the glass window, my coffee gradually cooling on the table. My heart was still racing from the enormous figures my grandfather had left me, but I tried to stay calm. I couldn't rush things. First, I needed a stable place to live, no more sleeping in the car or worrying about eviction. I opened my phone, searched for real estate, and decided to use a small portion of the inheritance to buy a modest apartment on the outskirts of San Antonio. Nothing extravagant, just comfortable. One bedroom, a small kitchen, a balcony overlooking a park. It cost about $150,000, a sum I wouldn't have dared dream of before. I contacted the agent, signed the contract quickly, and within a few days I had the keys to the apartment. Stepping inside for the first time, the faint smell of fresh paint lingering, the polished wooden floors gleaming, I stood frozen in the living room. This was my home. No debt, no difficult landlord. I collapsed onto the sofa, tears streaming down my face from sheer joy. For the first time in years, I had a stable place to live, a place that truly belonged to me. But I didn't stop there. With my years of experience in logistics, I decided to start a small-scale logistics company, using what I knew to carve out my own path. I thought back to my days as a manager at the old company, the mistakes they made. Now I would do things differently, better. I used another portion of the money to register the company, naming it Morales Logistics as a tribute to my grandfather. The first office was just a cheap rented garage on the outskirts with old desks and second-hand computers. I bought 2 used trucks and fixed them up to make them operational. The early days were a real challenge. I had to handle almost everything myself, calling potential clients, negotiating contracts, coordinating deliveries, even driving the trucks when the drivers were busy. I'd wake up at 5 a.m., check the cargo, then drive all over the city making deliveries. Once, a shipment was delayed due to traffic. The client called furious, "What kind of business are you running? This late and everything's ruined." I apologized profusely, drove extra routes myself to make up for it, and got home at midnight, my body exhausted. There were moments when I thought I couldn't keep going. The garage rent, driver's salaries, fuel costs, everything piled up and clients were scarce. I'd lie in bed, my mind spinning. Did I make a mistake? Even with Grandpa's money, if the business fails, all this effort and time will go down the drain and I'll feel like I let him down. My heart pounded with worry. Sleep came fitfully, haunted by nightmares of the company collapsing. I feared I would ruin this one chance to stand on my own. But I didn't give up. Drawing on the resilience I'd built from years of being pushed around at my old job, I learned to persevere. I improved the service, tracking shipments with a simple app, ensuring on-time delivery and offering discounts to loyal customers. Gradually, clients increased, from a few small shops to medium-sized companies. After those grueling months, the company steadily stabilized. I bought more trucks, hired more staff, a driver, a secretary, then built an efficient operations team. Revenue grew, from a few $1,000s in the first months to tens of thousands. I remember the day I signed my first big contract with a manufacturing plant. My heart raced with excitement as I signed, then I breathed a sigh of relief when everything went smoothly. The company settled into sustainable growth, not because of abundant money, but because of perseverance and lessons from the past. I still oversaw things personally, but now I had more time to breathe. Life turned a new page, but I chose to live simply and quietly. No flaunting wealth, no changing my outward appearance. I still wore old shirts, drove trucks when needed, ate simply. I didn't want anyone to know I was rich, fearing prying eyes or opportunists. The modest apartment gave me a sense of security I'd never had. Coming home at night, turning on warm lights, cooking a simple meal, reading business books. I thought of my grandfather. "Grandpa, I'm using the money wisely." Work settled into a steady rhythm, revenue stable, and I felt far enough from my family to start over in peace. No contact with my parents or Mateo, no more thinking about them. The past was the past. Now it was time to live for myself, but life is never peaceful forever. One day, while I was working in the office, checking delivery schedules on the computer, my secretary knocked. "Boss, 3 people are here to see you. They say they're family." My heart skipped a beat. A bad premonition rose. I looked through the glass door. My parents, Carlos and Rosa, along with Mateo, standing in the lobby with stern expressions. They wore ordinary clothes, but their posture showed they weren't here for a casual visit. The atmosphere immediately tensed. Employees whispered to each other, eyes drawn to them. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm despite the shock and lack of welcome. "Show them to the private room," I told the secretary, my voice steady. I didn't want a scene in front of the staff. I needed to maintain at least some boundaries for myself. They entered the private room. The door closed, the air heavy as lead. My father sat down first, my mother beside him, Mateo leaning against the wall with a half smirk. Their attitude was completely different from before. Not the explosive anger of the night they kicked me out, but a cold, calculated demeanor, as if they'd prepared carefully. I sat across from them, hands clenched under the table, heart pounding with anticipation. "Mom, Dad, Mateo, what's this about?" I asked, my voice calm but guarded. My father spoke first, his tone even but sharp. "We received a legal confirmation letter from your grandfather's lawyer. We know everything, Stephen. You're the sole beneficiary of all of Antonio's assets. We have no claim." My mother continued, staring intently. "You hid it well. Millions of dollars, real estate, investments, all left to you?" Mateo chimed in sarcastically. "Big brother, you've struck it rich, huh? This company, the new apartment, all thanks to Grandpa's money." I sat silently, emotions surging, anger at their sudden appearance, worry about what they wanted. But I stayed composed, giving nothing away. They began questioning the origin and scale of my grandfather's assets. My father asked, "Where did Grandpa get all that money? A mechanic with millions? Was there something shady?" My mother added, "Grandpa favored you from childhood, but the assets belong to the family, don't they?" I explained briefly. "He invested wisely over his lifetime, everything legal. The will is clear." But they weren't listening, quickly moving to their main demand. "You have to divide the assets equally with us and Mateo. That's your duty as a son in the family. If you don't share, you're ungrateful." Mateo nodded. "Exactly, bro. I'm your blood brother. I deserve a share. Don't blame us if you refuse." My heart pounded harder, tension rising. This was the real test. I refused firmly, my voice steady. "No, this was Grandfather's clear wish, prepared legally long ago. It's not something to negotiate or divide based on feelings. He chose me for his own reasons, and I respect that." My refusal ignited fierce anger. My father slammed the table. "You're selfish, ungrateful. We gave you life, raised you. Now you betray the family." My mother wailed, "You think you can keep it all and live in peace? Family should think of each other. Share a little with Mateo, with us. What does it cost you?" Mateo joined in mockingly. "Who do you think you are? Rich now, so you turn your back on family? This betrayal is unacceptable." I held my ground, refusing to yield despite the barrage. My heart raced, sweat broke out, but I didn't shout back, just repeated, "This was Grandfather's decision. I can't change it." The meeting ended in heavy silence. They stood up, faces flushed. Before leaving, my father issued a warning. "This isn't over, Stephen. We won't give up easily. You'll regret it." Mateo smirked. "Just wait." They stormed out, the door slamming shut, leaving me sitting there with vague unease. What would they do next? Spread rumors? Sue? My peaceful life was now threatened, and I knew a storm was coming. In the days following that meeting, I tried to focus on work, but anxiety lingered like a ghost. I checked emails, delivery schedules, met with employees, everything as usual, but my mind was restless. My heart raced every time the phone rang, fearing a call from my parents or Mateo. And then the real storm hit. My parents began spreading rumors, circulating them through mutual friends, distant relatives, even on social media. Stephen seized all of Grandfather's assets, cutting out the family to enjoy it alone. They told everyone, their voices full of feigned resentment. I heard it from an old acquaintance who called, "Stephen, I heard you took all of Grandpa's money and didn't share with your parents. How could you be so cruel?" I stayed silent, hung up, but my chest tightened. Those rumors spread like a virus in the Mexican community in San Antonio, where everyone is connected through family ties. Mateo didn't stay on the sidelines. He smeared my professional reputation, sowing doubt about my credibility and ethics among industry contacts. Mateo worked at a nearby transportation company with a wide network. He called my partners, sent messages. "Be careful with Stephen Morales. He seized the family inheritance. He's not trustworthy." I knew because a longtime client called to ask, "Stephen, I've heard rumors you have family issues, that you took Grandpa's money. Is it true? I'm worried about our contracts." I explained briefly. It's just rumors. The company is operating normally. But my voice trembled, filled with nervous worry. The rumors spread fast like wildfire on dry grass. Some clients hesitated, contracts were delayed. Let me think about it, they said cautiously. My business faltered despite no concrete evidence against me. Revenue dropped, employees whispered behind my back, "Is the boss in some kind of trouble?" I lay in bed late at night, my mind spinning, heart pounding. What do they want? To destroy my company? Faced with this wave of attacks, I chose silence. No explanations, no arguments. I knew that speaking up in the chaos would only distort the truth further. They would twist my words, making me look like someone making excuses. I decided to let justice speak for itself, believing time would prove the truth. But waiting was hell. Every morning I woke up and checked emails, fearing cancellation notices. I recalled the years of favoritism at home. Mateo always defended, me unfairly scolded. Now they were using the same tactic but on a larger scale. I walked in the park near my home, trying to breathe deeply, but the worry clung tight. I have to be strong, I told myself, clutching grandfather's letter in my pocket, the last lifeline. Soon my fears became reality. One morning my secretary handed me a thick envelope. "Boss, this is a court summons." My heart skipped a beat. My hands shook as I opened it. The plaintiffs were my parents, demanding redistribution of grandfather's entire estate. They sued me in civil court, claiming half the assets, millions of dollars, real estate, investments. Stephen Morales has unjustly seized the family inheritance, the complaint read, full of emotional language about filial duty and piety. I collapsed into my chair, mind blank. Anxiety surged. A lawsuit? A trial? I'd never dealt with legal matters, now facing my own parents. I immediately called a lawyer recommended by a friend, Mr. Ramirez, a specialist in inheritance. "Stephen, don't worry. We have strong evidence," he said, but my voice still shook. "What will they do in court? Lie?" The weeks of preparation were a nightmare. I gathered documents, grandfather's will, inheritance letters from the bank, transfer records. Lawyer Ramirez reviewed them. "Very strong, Stephen. The will designates you as the sole beneficiary, completely legal." But I worried. Sleep was fitful, haunted by dreams of the trial. My parents crying, Mateo smirking, the judge ruling against me. My heart raced whenever I thought of the court date. I avoided people, focused on work, but revenue kept falling. The rumors persisted. A major partner canceled a contract. "Sorry, Stephen, but I've heard about your family issues affecting your reputation." I gritted my teeth and endured, but the pain cut deep. The trial took place in a tense atmosphere at the San Antonio District Courthouse. A large courtroom with polished wooden benches, the judge seated high with a stern expression. I wore a black suit, sitting beside my lawyer, heart pounding like a drum. My parents and Mateo sat on the other side, faces cold. Their lawyer, a stocky middle-aged man named Mr. Vargas, stood first. He repeatedly made emotional arguments, focusing on filial duty and piety. "Your Honor, Stephen Morales has acted ungratefully by keeping all the assets. This is family inheritance. It should be divided equally among parents and brother. He is selfish, betraying his own blood," my father testified, voice trembling falsely. "My son changed after getting the money. We raised him and now he abandons us." My mother cried, "It breaks my heart, Your Honor. How could my son do this?" Mateo added, "He's always been jealous of me, now using the money for revenge." I sat listening, blood rushing to my face, filled with nervous worry. The judge nodded. People whispered. Would they believe it? When it was our turn to respond, Lawyer Ramirez stood, voice calm but sharp. He clearly presented the legal evidence. "Your Honor, this is a valid inheritance file designating Stephen Morales as the sole beneficiary. All procedures were completed properly long before Antonio's death." He submitted the documents, the notarized will, bank records. The judge examined them and nodded. But the climax came when I added grandfather Antonio's handwritten letter. I stood, hands trembling, as I handed it over. "Your Honor, this is a letter my grandfather wrote by hand, explaining why he left the assets to me." The lawyer read it aloud, line by line. "Stephen was never weak. He just never had a fair family. I saw the favoritism toward Matteo, the indifference and neglect Stephen endured for years. This inheritance is to protect my grandson, not to be divided." The room fell silent. My parents went pale. Matteo looked down. The judge read the letter carefully, eyes narrowing. After reviewing all evidence and confirming the will's legality along with the letter, the court ruled completely in my favor, rejecting all claims from my parents. "The will is legal. There is no basis for redistribution," the judge said, his voice echoing in the silent courtroom, then banging the gavel with a resounding thud, like a final affirmation. I let out a long breath of relief, tears streaming down my cheeks, not from sadness or disappointment, but from overwhelming relief, as if a heavy burden had finally been lifted. My parents left the courtroom ashen-faced, shoulders slumped, without glancing at me, as if my existence was now just an embarrassing irrelevance. Matteo shot me one last glare, eyes full of hostility and promise. "This isn't over." But I didn't care. I just smiled faintly, shaking lawyer Ramirez's hand firmly. "Thank you. You saved me." Stepping out of the courthouse, the blazing San Antonio sun made me squint, but my heart felt brighter than ever, like a new dawn after a long storm. The media quickly covered the case, exploding like a bomb in the local community. Local newspapers ran prominent stories with sensational headlines. "Son wins lawsuit against parents over inheritance. Grandfather's handwritten letter exposes family favoritism." They laid out the truth in detail, vindicating me with quotes from the letter and court records while portraying my parents as favoritism-driven, manipulative, and abandoning their child when there was no more benefit to gain. Another article titled "The Morales Family, a Sad Story of Internal Injustice" clearly described how grandfather had observed and documented the injustice I endured for years. People called to congratulate me nonstop. "Stephen, you were right. Justice finally prevailed." Business recovered quickly. Old clients returned with apologies. New contracts poured in, as if the previous rumors were just a dark cloud that had dissipated. I sat in my office, reading the news on my phone, heart racing with emotion, feeling both proud and moved to see my name mentioned as a symbol of resilience. Facing this outcome, I understood it wasn't just a legal victory. It was the final boundary separating me from a painful past, affirming my worth through undeniable truth rather than weak defenses or pleas. That evening, I sat alone at home holding grandfather's letter, the familiar handwriting like a whisper from the past, and murmured, "Thank you, Grandpa. You gave me this strength." Life moved forward smoothly, but now I was stronger than ever, ready to face any challenge ahead. Yet deep inside, a vague worry lingered. Would they truly stop? Had the storm really passed, or was this just the calm before another attack? After winning the lawsuit, I once believed that everything had finally come to an end. The trial was over, the media had reported on it, and my business began to recover. These were clear signs that my life could return to a normal track. I went back to Morales Logistics, held meetings with employees, signed new contracts, feeling full of energy. Early mornings, I'd wake up at 6 a.m., brew black coffee, check the delivery schedules. "Today will be good," I told myself, looking out from the apartment balcony as the warm San Antonio sun streamed in. Clients called to congratulate me. "Stephen, I read the news. You're really strong." Revenue climbed back up. Employees chatted and laughed cheerfully. I thought I had finally found peace. No more rumors, no more lawsuits. But life isn't that simple. That vague worry turned out to be an accurate premonition. Just a few weeks later, my parents started coming back, but not with rumors or legal action anymore. They shifted to a more sophisticated and persistent tactic. Constant harassment, like water dripping endlessly, wearing down my spirit little by little. At first, it came unexpectedly. One morning while I was in the office reviewing invoices, my secretary knocked. "Boss, there's a Mrs. Rosa Morales here to see you." My heart skipped a beat. My mother? I invited her in, trying to stay calm, but my hand gripped the pen tightly. She entered, eyes red and teary, sat down with a remorseful look. "Stephen, my son, I was wrong. Everything before was just a misunderstanding. I regret it so much. Come back to the family." She sobbed, rambling about hard times, Dad's poor health, Mateo's work troubles. I listened, my heart racing with nervousness. Was this real or a ploy? I shook my head. "Mom, the past is over. I have my own life now." But she didn't stop, grabbing my arm. "You're my son, forgive me." I firmly refused, my voice calm but resolute. "I'm sorry, but I can't. Grandfather made this choice and I respect it." Her attitude changed instantly, from crying to blaming. "You're ungrateful. You've torn the family apart. Because of you, your parents are suffering." She yelled, tears now of anger, then stormed out, slamming the door. I sat there gasping, sweat pouring out. This was just the beginning. In the days that followed, they took turns showing up at the company. One day Dad came, voice trembling. "Stephen, I'm old now. I need my son by my side. Forget everything, just share a little money with Mateo." I refused, and he switched to blaming, "You're the cause of all this. If you weren't so selfish, the family would be happy." Mateo joined in too, arriving with a fake smile. "Big brother, I was wrong. Lend me some money, I won't bother you anymore." But when I shook my head, he sneered, "You think you can escape? We're blood." The harassment didn't stop at work. They started invading my private life, constantly finding ways to reach me. My phone rang all night, messages from Mom. "My son, I miss you." From Dad, "Think it over." From Mateo, "You'll regret it." I blocked the numbers, but they used new ones. They showed up at my apartment door, knocking at midnight. "Stephen, open up. We need to talk." I peered through the peephole, heart pounding in fear, but didn't open. Those nights I no longer ate or slept well, lying in bed, mind spinning with their accusations. Sleep fitful and filled with nightmares of the past. Dad kicking me out, Mom's fake tears, Mateo's smirk. I lost weight, dark circles under my eyes, always living in tension, as if the family ghost followed me everywhere. I tried to endure it, thinking silence would make them give up. But they didn't stop. The peak came when they repeatedly interrupted my external meetings with partners. The first time I was meeting a major client at a cafe discussing a transportation contract. Suddenly Dad appeared, waiting outside the glass, then walked in mid-conversation. "Stephen, my son, let's talk for a bit." The client looked surprised. I flushed red. "Dad, I'm in a meeting. Later." But he ignored it, sat down at the table and rambled. "My son is rich now, but abandons his parents." The atmosphere grew tense. The client eyed me suspiciously and ended the meeting early. "I'll think about it." I went home shaking with anger and embarrassment, heart racing. Another time, Mom showed up at a restaurant meeting, sobbing in public. "My son, how could you abandon me?" My partner, a middle-aged man, looked awkward. "Stephen, family problems? I don't want to get involved in drama." That contract nearly fell through. Mateo was worse. He waited in the parking lot after a meeting, shouting, "Big brother, share the money, or do you want me to tell everyone?" The consequences were severe. Business relationships suffered badly. Clients hesitated. "Stephen, I've heard your family is causing trouble. It's starting to affect your reputation." Revenue dropped again. Employees whispered, "The boss keeps getting harassed." Work and life were gradually eroded, even though I'd done nothing wrong. I felt exhausted, besieged from all sides, nervous and anxious every time I went out, fearing they'd appear any time. Realizing that silence and patience only made things worse, I was forced to make the most painful decision of my life. Seek a restraining order against my own parents. The thought tormented me, keeping me awake for nights. They were my blood, the people who gave me life, even if their love had always been skewed and hurtful. But now they were destroying me day by day, hour by hour, turning the life I'd worked so hard to build into hell. I lay in bed staring at the dark ceiling, heart pounding with inner conflict. What am I doing? Suing my own parents? But if I don't, they'll continue and I'll collapse. Childhood memories flooded back. Dad teaching me to ride a bike, Mom cooking meager meals, but mixed with unfair scoldings and neglect. I knew that if I didn't act, I'd lose everything. The company, my health, and myself. Finally, after a sleepless night, I picked up the phone and called Lawyer Ramirez, voice trembling. "Lawyer, I need a restraining order against my parents." He paused, then agreed. "All right, Stephen, but we need solid evidence. This is serious. The court will examine it carefully." I gathered evidence carefully, like building a final protective wall. First, the harassing messages. Hundreds from my parents and Mateo from please, "My son, come back," to threats, "You'll regret it." I printed them all, organized by date, hands shaking as I reread the venomous words. Then security videos from the office. Dad bursting in yelling, "You're ungrateful." Mom sobbing in front of employees, Mateo smirking outside the door. I watched them over and over, heart racing with shame and anger. My staff had seen it all. Some even avoided me out of fear. I collected statements from them. The secretary wrote, "Mrs. Rosa came in yelling, disrupting work." A driver recounted, "Mr. Carlos blocked my truck in the parking lot asking about the boss." Even from partners, one company owner emailed, "Your family interrupted our meeting. It put me in an awkward position." Each time I gathered more, I paused to catch my breath, anxiety surging. What will people think? A son suing his parents? What will the press say? Millionaire son disowns family? I imagined sensational local headlines, friends whispering behind my back, distant relatives shunning me. The judgmental stares from outside would hurt, but I accepted it. Because I had no other choice. If I didn't stop them, my life would shatter completely. Once the file was complete, I submitted the petition. The hearing was swift. The judge reviewed the documents, heard my statement. They harassed me constantly, affecting my work and health. No representatives from their side. Perhaps they thought I wouldn't dare. The judge nodded, paused, then ruled, "The court grants the restraining order. Mr. and Mrs. Carlos and Rosa Morales, along with Mateo Morales, are prohibited from approaching or interfering in any way with Stephen Morales' life and work. No calls, no proximity, no messages or any contact. Violations will result in fines or imprisonment." The gavel banged dryly. I exhaled in relief but felt mixed emotions. Freed at last, yet empty because this was the final severance of blood ties. I left the courthouse with the papers in hand, the bright sun outside blinding, but my heart feeling hollow. When that familiar yet toxic presence vanished, I felt an emptiness mixed with relief, as if a long nightmare had ended but left a vast void. My phone went completely silent. No more midnight messages, no pleading or threatening calls. The office returned to peace. Employees chatted comfortably again. No shadows of them outside the windows or in the parking lot. I slept better, no longer jolting awake at ringing bells. I ate well without stress killing my appetite. Work recovered quickly with new contracts flooding in. Clients called, "Stephen, things are calm now, let's do business." But the emptiness lingered, hiding in quiet moments alone. After all, they were family. The painful childhood memories were still part of me. I choked up, wondering, what have I lost to gain this peace? I understood that sometimes to protect yourself you must cut off even relationships called family, even if it hurts like cutting flesh. I sat on the apartment balcony watching the sunset paint the San Antonio sky red, a cool breeze carrying the fresh scent of grass, and whispered to myself, I did the right thing. This was the only way to keep living. But life is long, and I know this peace may be fragile. Who knows what the future holds, but at least now I am free to face it. After the restraining order took effect, life gradually stabilized again, like a river returning to its calm flow after a flood. I could fully focus on work without being distracted by accusations or fake tears. The Morales Logistics office now felt like the safest place for me. Phone calls were from clients, not my parents. Employees chatted and laughed freely, no longer whispering about the boss's family drama. I breathed a sigh of relief. For the first time in months, I felt truly in control of my life. I devoted more time to the company, personally overseeing every project and client. Before, family troubles had always pulled my attention away, but now things were different. Early mornings, I'd be the first to arrive at the office, brew coffee for everyone, then sit down to review schedules. Today, we have a delivery to the factory on the outskirts. Make sure it's on time, I'd tell the driver, my voice confident. I personally called partners, negotiated contracts, even drove trucks when we were short-staffed. I clearly felt the initiative and control I'd never had before, no longer oppressed or begging for anything. One afternoon, after signing a major contract with a supermarket chain, I sat at my desk looking out the window, my heart racing with joy. I did it, I thought, remembering the early struggling months when the company nearly went bankrupt from lack of clients. Now revenue was steady, the team had grown to 10 people, and I felt proud. Grandfather must be smiling from above. But life isn't just about work. After months of loneliness, I began to realize I needed more, someone to share with, not for money or status. And then Isabella Cruz entered my life unexpectedly, like a cool breeze in a scorching desert. It happened during a partner meeting at a restaurant to discuss a transportation contract. The restaurant was an elegant spot in downtown San Antonio, with warm golden lighting and the faint aroma of Italian food. I arrived early, dressed in a neat black suit, waiting with a glass of water on the table. My partner, Mr. William from the import company, arrived with his assistant, a young woman with long black hair tied neatly, wearing a simple but elegant office dress. "This is Isabella Cruz, my assistant," Mr. William introduced cheerfully. I shook her hand, feeling its softness yet firmness. "Pleased to meet you," I said normally, but my heart beat a little faster. For some reason, her calm gaze held no judgment like many others. As the business discussion unfolded, I paid more attention to Isabella. We talked about shipping schedules from Mexico, costs, and timelines. Mr. Williams spoke most, but Isabella only interjected when necessary, calm, sharp, but never showy. According to the report, this route could save 10% in costs by avoiding peak hours, she said evenly, focusing purely on content and efficiency, completely uninterested in things like my money or status. I nodded, impressed. "Good idea. Let's try it." Throughout the meeting, she took careful notes, asked precise questions without fluff. For the first time in years, I felt respected as an equal partner, not because of the fortune grandfather left me. The meeting ended smoothly. We shook hands goodbye, but Isabella's eyes flashed a light, genuine smile. After that meeting and a few short work-related exchanges, Isabella contacted me via email to confirm contract details. "Stephen, regarding the route, I suggest the changes attached," she wrote, including a clear Excel file. I replied, and gradually those emails grew a bit longer. "Thanks, Isabella, great suggestion. I'm thinking more about this point," I wrote. Then a short call. "Hello, it's Stephen. About next week's shipment. What do you think?" Her voice on the phone was warm, unhurried. For the first time in a long while, I felt someone talking to me as an equal partner. No probing, no curiosity about my past or sudden wealth, no questions about the family lawsuit, no sarcasm about my riches, just pure work and respect. My heart raced whenever I saw an email from her, a mix of nervousness and hope. In the days that followed, through project-related interactions, I had more chances to connect with Isabella. We met at the partner's office to discuss details. The first time was at a nearby cafe. She arrived with a notebook and laptop sitting across from me. "Stephen, about fuel costs. I calculated it like this," she said, pointing to the screen. I listened, and gradually the conversation branched out. "How long have you been an assistant?" I asked naturally. 3 years. I like this job because I get to learn, she replied, eyes brightening. Each meeting left me feeling relieved, as if work was no longer just pressure but a safe space. I remember the time we inspected a shipment at the warehouse together. She wore a jeans jacket, helped me count inventory without minding the dirt, laughing. "Stephen, this crate is too heavy." I laughed along, my heart warming. For the first time in years, I felt a real connection. From purely professional exchanges, we gradually shared more about our views on life, personal choices, and values we both cherished. One afternoon after a meeting, we lingered at the cafe talking about books. "I like reading about personal development," Isabella said, eyes sparkling. "What about you?" I told her about grandfather without delving into the inheritance, just saying, "He taught me that value lies in perseverance, not money." She nodded. "I agree. I grew up in a struggling family, so I value independence." We shared hobbies. She loved cooking Mexican food. I talked about grandfather's auto garage. Every conversation was deep, never superficial. I felt nervous before each meeting, worried I might say something wrong, but she always made me comfortable. Our feelings grew slowly but steadily. Not dramatic or rushed, not love at first sight, just meetings becoming more frequent, from work to coffee, then walks in the park. The first private date, I invited her to dinner at a small riverside restaurant. "Isabella, would you like to have dinner?" "Not work-related?" I asked, voice trembling. She smiled. "Yes." That evening, we talked about dreams. She wanted to study management more. I shared about the company. Hands touching, my heart raced. A sense of safety I'd missed for years flooding back. I remembered the lonely nights before, shouldering everything alone. Now someone listened without judgment. Gradually, I opened up more, allowing myself for the first time to believe I deserved a healthy relationship after years of loneliness and self-reliance. I told Isabella about my past, not details about the money, just the family favoritism. "I was once abandoned," I said, voice choking. She held my hand. "You're so strong, Stephen. I'm proud of you." Those words healed like medicine. We spent weekends together, beach walks, movies, cooking. The feelings ripened, and when deep enough, we decided to get engaged. Not from pressure or extravagance, no big party, just a simple ring and promises. "I want to be with you," she said. I hugged her, heart pounding with happiness. I entered this new chapter of life with rare tranquility, believing I had finally found hope for true happiness. No longer haunted by the past. I prepared everything, planned a small wedding, feeling life bright again. But then on one late date, everything changed. That evening was an ordinary Friday night, but looking back now, it felt like a time bomb that had been planted long ago. Isabella and I had been engaged for 2 months, and we were in the happiest phase. At least that's what I thought. We were planning a simple wedding, inviting only a few close friends, holding it in a small garden on the outskirts of San Antonio with fresh flowers and soft music. I bought her a ring, a white gold band with a small diamond. Nothing flashy because Isabella always said she preferred simplicity. "Stephen, I don't need anything grand, just you," she had whispered as I slipped the ring on her finger. At that moment, my heart raced with emotion. It felt like life was finally compensating me for all the lonely years. I spent weekends preparing, choosing flowers, trying on suits, even learning to cook her favorite Mexican dishes as a surprise. Work at Morales Logistics remained steady, but I devoted more time to her. Evening walks, late-night calls, sharing dreams about the future. "We'll have a little house with a garden and maybe a child," I dreamed aloud, and she smiled. "I'd love that, Stephen." I believed this was true love, without calculation, without exploitation, the very thing I had craved for years. But then that date arrived. We had planned to meet at a small riverside bar, our usual spot with soft jazz music and warm golden lighting. I intended to arrive early, but work intervened. An urgent shipment was delayed, and the client called yelling. "Stephen, the goods have to arrive tonight," they shouted over the phone. I had to stay at the office, coordinating drivers and rechecking routes. My heart pounding with worry, I texted Isabella. "I'll be 20 minutes late. Sorry, love." She replied quickly, "No problem, I'll wait." I breathed a sigh of relief, drove hurriedly to the bar, sweat still beading on my forehead from rushing around. By the time I arrived, it was pitch dark outside. The river sparkled under the streetlights. I parked, walked in with a ready smile, wanting to surprise her. Isabella was already there, sitting in our usual corner, back to the door, holding her phone and talking to someone. I approached quietly, stepping lightly on the wooden floor, planning to hug her from behind and whisper, "Surprise!" The atmosphere was cozy, smooth jazz playing, the faint scent of wine in the air. But then, just a few steps away, I froze completely, as if turned to ice. Isabella's voice came through clearly on the phone, not loud but audible in the quiet space. "Yeah, I've got him hooked already. Just wait a little longer. After we're married, I'll have complete control over him. Then we can gradually access that huge fortune he's holding. Don't worry. He trusts me completely, no suspicions at all." She laughed softly, her tone cold and calculating, utterly different from the gentle Isabella I knew. My heart pounded wildly, blood rushing to my ears. The world around me blurred. Who was on the other end? And was he me? I stood frozen, gripping a nearby chair to keep from collapsing. In that moment, I was numb, not from explosive anger like when my parents scolded me, but from a truth too icy, too cruel. The relationship I believed was the safest, the most genuine, had been built on calculation and exploitation. Isabella, the woman I loved, the one I planned to spend my life with, was just a pawn in a scheme to seize everything. Tears stung the corners of my eyes, but I didn't cry. I only felt a deep pain spreading from my chest throughout my body. Memories flooded back in slow motion. Our first meetings at the office, her calm smile, our conversations about life, all now seen in a different light, full of suspicion. How long has she been approaching me? For the money? I wondered, my heart racing so hard I could barely breathe. The bar now felt like a theater stage, laughter from other tables echoing distantly. Anger surged like a tidal wave. I wanted to rush over, confront her, shout why, but reason quickly suppressed it. I knew that confronting her now would allow her to deny everything, twist it. "I was just joking, love," or "you misheard," and paint me as paranoid and jealous without cause. She was smart, sharp. She could easily turn the tables, making me doubt myself. I stood there, breathing deeply to stay calm, stepping back into the shadows to observe. When Isabella ended the call and pocketed her phone, she looked around casually. I deliberately made noise as if just arriving. A light cough, stepping out from the entrance with a forced smile. "Love, I'm here. Sorry I'm late." She turned, instantly switching her demeanor, flashing a warm smile, standing to hug me, voice gentle. "It's okay. I just got here too. Sit down. I'll order a drink for you." She acted as if nothing had happened, lightly kissing my cheek, eyes sparkling as always. I played the role of the normal boyfriend perfectly, even as my heart began cracking like fractured glass inside. I sat down, ordered a beer, chatted about the day. "I was so busy today, an urgent shipment." She nodded, holding my hand. "You worked hard, I'm proud of you." Every word from her now cut like a knife, but I performed flawlessly, smiling, asking about her day, even joking about the upcoming wedding. Inside, my mind spun. She's acting and so am I. My heart raced from tension, sweat breaking out on my back, but I showed nothing. The date ended with a goodbye kiss. She left first, and I drove home in the darkness, tears streaming uncontrollably. That night I barely slept, tossing and turning in bed, piecing everything together like a black and white film. From the very first meeting, she was the partner's assistant, approaching naturally through work. The conversations growing intimate, her always listening, always supportive. Was it all planned? I thought, my heart aching sharply. And then I realized Isabella wasn't acting alone. Who had the clearest motive to reach me, exploit my feelings, to seize the assets? No one but my parents and Mateo. They had lost in court. The restraining order blocked direct harassment, but they could use someone else. a beautiful, intelligent woman like Isabella. How long have they been planning this? I sat up, turned on the light, jotting down every detail. Our first meeting came right after the lawsuit ended, when the media reported on the inheritance. Too coincidental? A chill ran down my spine. Anxiety surged. If true, this betrayal was deeper than I'd imagined. In the following days, I quietly observed instead of confronting directly. I didn't want to alert her. I needed solid proof before acting. I still met Isabella as usual, playing the happy fiancé, sending flowers, calling goodnight. But inside, I watched everything. I checked my call history, without hacking, just recalling, noticing she often ended conversations early on certain days. I decided to follow her for the first time in my life, feeling like a movie detective, but the pain was far more real. One evening, after saying goodnight on the phone, I drove near my parents' house, the old neighborhood I'd long avoided. I parked far away, sitting in the dark, heart pounding nervously, fearing discovery. The night wind was cold, dogs barked in the distance. And then I saw Isabella arrive cautiously, bundled in a heavy coat, looking around before entering my parents' house. She stayed a long time, over 2 hours, the living room light blazing. When she left, hurrying to her car, I knew her connection to my parents wasn't random, but a long-prepared collusion. Was she reporting back? I thought, gripping the steering wheel tightly, tears stinging my eyes. But I needed stronger proof. Over the next days, I continued surveillance, sleeping little, mind constantly tense. I pretended to be busy with work to see her less often, but kept contact to avoid suspicion. Then one afternoon, I followed near Matteo's place, the apartment he rented on the outskirts, which I knew about. I parked far away using binoculars I'd hastily bought, watching from the driver's seat. My heart raced with nervousness, fearing I'd be spotted like a criminal. And then I saw it with my own eyes. Isabella appearing with my brother in intimate gestures, hand in hand, sharing a passionate kiss before entering the house. They laughed and hugged like real lovers without hesitation. In that moment, the pain was no longer vague suspicion, but complete, sharp betrayal, like a knife stabbing deep. She wasn't just scheming for the assets. She was deceiving my emotions, exploiting me from every angle. Fake love with me while truly being Matteo's lover. My heart shattered. Tears streamed down, but I didn't scream. Just sat frozen in the car. Watching from afar through the fogged windshield, I realized I had never held a real place in this relationship. Everything I called love, the kisses, the whispers, the future plans, was just part of a seizure plot orchestrated by my own blood family. My parents and Matteo had used Isabella as a tool, approaching me when I was most vulnerable, after the lawsuit and restraining order. Anger surged alongside the pain. Memories of meetings with her now stood out clearly. How she cleverly asked about the company and finances, how she avoided talking about her own past. It was all lies. I drove home that night with tears blurring the streets, feeling as if the world had collapsed once again. But this time I wasn't desperate, only in pain and determined to find a way to end it. The late-night streets of San Antonio were deserted. The dim yellow streetlights cast lonely streaks of light, reflecting the agony gnawing at me from within. I gripped the steering wheel tightly, my knuckles white from the strain, trying to stay calm and keep the car steady. The image of Isabella kissing Matteo replayed in my mind like a horror film. Her smile, their intimate gestures, all now starkly visible beneath the mask of deception. How could they? I whispered to myself, voice choking. It wasn't just Isabella's betrayal. My own flesh and blood, my parents and Matteo, had orchestrated this from the start, using her as a tool to reach me and seize grandfather's inheritance. The pain of betrayal mingled with an indescribable humiliation, like a deep wound that wouldn't stop bleeding. I pulled over to the roadside for a moment, breathing deeply, wiping tears with my sleeve. It has to end, I told myself. I couldn't let them keep manipulating me. I couldn't live in suspicion and pain forever. I decided to take the initiative and confront them with one sole purpose, to end it all, once and for all. The hours that followed were hell. I got back to the apartment, tossed my keys on the table, and collapsed onto the sofa, my mind spinning. I pulled out the stack of photos I'd taken during the days of surveillance, clear evidence of their collusion. The blurry shots under streetlights, Isabella cautiously entering my parents' house, staying for hours. Then the clearest ones, her and Matteo hand in hand, kissing passionately in front of his place under the dim light. Each photo cut like a knife, but now they were my weapons. My heart pounded with anxiety as I wondered, what will I say? How will they react? I imagined the confrontation, my parents denying it, Matteo smirking, but I wasn't afraid anymore. The pain had turned into strength, a cold determination. I didn't sleep that night, lying awake piecing everything together. From the first meeting with Isabella through work to how she gradually wormed her way into my life, her clever questions about assets in the company. It was all planned, a sophisticated scheme by my family since they couldn't approach me directly because of the restraining order. How stupid did they think I was, I thought, anger surging. The next morning I got up early, brewed strong black coffee, put on a clean shirt and drove to my parents' house. The old street I once thought was my last refuge, now just a painful memory. The familiar route felt heavy. Every turn reminded me of the past. I remembered being kicked out that night, tears streaming in the dark. Now I was returning not to beg, but to end it. My heart beat faster as I turned onto the street, run-down houses, the same dim yellow streetlights as before. I parked in front, took several deep breaths, holding the stack of photos like a shield. Stay calm, Stephen, I told myself, stepping out of the car with steadier legs than ever. Carrying the pain of betrayal and an indescribable humiliation, humiliated for trusting, for opening up after so much hurt. I pushed the door open and entered the house. The familiar smell of food hit me. Tortillas and coffee, but now it only made me nauseous. My parents and Matteo were sitting in the living room, murmuring in conversation, probably plotting their next move. When I walked in, they froze noticeably, surprise clear on their faces. Dad paused with his coffee cup. Mom's eyes widened. Matteo smirked, but quickly hid it. I knew they had been talking about me, about Isabella, never expecting me to show up now, like a ghost from the past returning for justice. The room's atmosphere instantly tensed like a string about to snap. Dad spoke first, voice feigning surprise. Stephen, why are you here so suddenly? What about the restraining order? Mom added, eyes averted. My son, I've missed you so much, but why are you here? Matteo leaned back in his chair, smirking. Big brother here to apologize? Or has the order expired? Whatever you want, say it. We're busy. I stood in the middle of the room, hand gripping the photos in my pocket, heart pounding nervously but voice steady. I'm here to end everything. No more beating around the bush. They exchanged glances, expressions shifting from surprise to wariness. Without waiting for more, I pulled up a chair and sat facing them, bluntly laying out the entire chain of manipulation and exploitation. I know everything. How you planted Isabella to approach me through work, gradually steering the relationship, faking affection to exploit my feelings. The ultimate goal? Marry me, gain control, then step by step seize grandfather's assets. Isabella wasn't coincidence, she was your tool. My words exploded like a bomb. The room fell silent for a moment. Then my parents denied it fiercely, faces flushing red. Dad slammed the table. Are you crazy, Stephen? Paranoid. Isabella? We don't know anything about that girl. You're traumatized and imagining things. Mom joined in, voice shrill mixed with sobs. My son, how can you think so badly of your parents? We just wanted you back in the family. What exploitation? You cut ties over money and now make up lies to justify your conscience? Matteo laughed loudly in mockery. Big brother, you've always been suspicious and weak since childhood. Now that you're rich, you think everyone's after your money? Isabella loves you for real. Or are you inventing a conspiracy to abandon us? They attacked relentlessly, words cutting like knives, trying to flip the situation, painting me as delusional. My heart raced harder, anger rising, but I didn't let emotions take over. I remembered the nights of surveillance, the pain of seeing Isabella with Matteo. No, I wasn't wrong. I didn't argue further, didn't shout back or defend at length. Instead, I silently pulled the photos from my pocket and slammed them on the table. The pictures scattered. Isabella cautiously entering my parents' house late at night, leaving after 2 hours, hair disheveled, and the clearest, her and Matteo hand in hand, kissing passionately in front of his place under dim streetlights. "Explain this," I said coldly. The room plunged into heavy silence like the air before a storm. My parents' and Matteo's faces went pale, eyes wide in horror, all their previous denials now empty and absurd. Dad stammered, This is fake. You photoshopped it?" But his voice shook, unconvincing. Mom covered her mouth, tears streaming. This time real, not fake. Matteo looked down, no longer smirking, face red with shame at being caught. Cornered with no escape, they shifted to blaming everything except themselves. Dad sighed weakly. "Stephen, life is unfair, son. We're poor, drowning in debt. We just wanted to keep what should belong to the family. Grandfather left the money to you, but we're blood. We deserve a share, right?" Mom cried. "I didn't want this, but Matteo needs money for investments. Your dad is sick. We just thought of a way. We wouldn't hurt you." Matteo muttered, head down. "Brother, you followed us?" They rambled about poverty, harsh life, how society pushed them to the brink, as if that justified betrayal. I listened but believed nothing, realizing that for years they'd been willing to sacrifice me for their own gain. From childhood favoring Matteo, neglecting me, now using fake love to steal. "What do you think I am? A pawn to exploit?" I thought, pain mixed with contempt. I stood up, voice resolute. "Enough. I'll be the one to end this relationship. Not with hatred or revenge, I'm not like you, but by severing all emotional, legal, and life ties. From now on, no contact, no approaching, no using anyone to manipulate me. Isabella, I'll handle separately. As for you, live with your choices." They stared, faces ashen, silent, perhaps from shock or knowing they were out of options. Without waiting for any reaction, no need for fake apologies or final pleas, I turned and left, feeling both pain and relief, stepping down the porch with steady legs as the night wind hit my face like a welcome to freedom. The door closed behind me with a dry thud, leaving behind a family stripped bare by truth. People finally facing the consequences of their own choices. I drove away into the night, tears streaming again, but no longer bitter, just release. The empty streets passed. I thought of grandfather. He had foreseen it all, and now I was strong enough to move on. But the pain lingered like a scar that would never fully heal. In the days following that confrontation, I felt as if I had just emerged from a long, endless nightmare. My body exhausted, but my mind strangely clear and alert. I didn't wait long to completely end the relationship with Isabella. The next morning I called her, my voice calmer than I myself expected. "Isabella, let's meet. I know everything." She was silent for a moment on the line, then agreed to meet at our usual cafe, the place where we'd had our most sincere conversations. When I arrived, she was sitting there with a composed expression, no longer wearing the gentle smile or sparkling eyes. I placed the stack of photos on the table without saying much. "I saw it all. You and Matteo, you visiting my parents' house. It was all planned." My heart raced with nervousness, waiting for her reaction. Would she cry, make excuses, or shout denials? But no. Once she knew I had the full truth, she didn't bother to justify or deny anything. All the masks fell away in silence. She just looked at me, eyes cold, and nodded. "Then let's end it." No apology, no pleading, just a cold acceptance, like a failed transaction. I stood up and left without looking back, feeling a mix of relief and nausea at having loved an illusion. I didn't prolong any further conversation or seek apologies, because what was there to apologize for when everything had been a lie from the start? I understood that some relationships simply need to end, without drama or theatrics. I blocked her number, deleted all the messages and shared photos, and threw the engagement ring into the trash without hesitation. That night, I sat alone on the balcony watching the stars twinkle, my heart still aching but no longer tormented. I've learned an expensive lesson, I thought, recalling the fake dates and the kisses that now clearly revealed themselves as tools. That pain made me more awake, but it also made me wonder, would I ever dare to trust anyone again? After that, I made a resolute decision: sell the apartment, transfer the company, and close the chapter on everything tied to the painful, contentious life in San Antonio. The apartment, once what I thought was my first real home, now only reminded me of sleepless nights from family harassment and evenings with Isabella that I now knew were lies. I contacted a real estate agent and sold it for a good price without regret. Morales Logistics, the brainchild I'd built from my warehouse experience, had become a burden of memories. Contracts affected by rumors, meetings interrupted by my parents showing up. I met with the employees and explained briefly, "I need to start over. The company will be transferred to a reliable partner. Everyone will get full pay and bonuses." They were surprised, some were sad. "Boss, why so sudden?" I smiled bitterly. Sometimes life needs a change. The transfer went smoothly. I kept enough money to live on and invested the rest safely, as grandfather had taught me. My heart raced with nervousness as I signed the final papers, feeling like I was cutting the last tie to the past. I left Texas and moved to Cannon Beach, Oregon, a small coastal town I'd stumbled upon in an old article, where no one knew who I was or cared about my past. The decision was sudden but right. Texas now held only painful memories. Family, Isabella, the lawsuit, everything. I drove cross-country with minimal luggage, a few clothes, my laptop, and grandfather's chest as a treasure. The long journey passed through vast fields, majestic mountains, and the salty sea breeze rushed into the car as I neared Oregon. My heart raced with excitement and fear, afraid of loneliness in a new place, but eager for freedom. Cannon Beach welcomed me with the rhythmic crash of waves, endless sandy shores, and cool air so different from San Antonio's stifling heat. I rented a small seaside house with rustic wooden walls and windows overlooking the ocean, where I could hear the waves every night without being haunted by the past. There I opened a small, simple cafe, just enough to live on, enough for peace, seeing it as a way to start over from zero, but with a completely different mindset. Not a big business like logistics, just a roadside spot named Antonio's Brew, in tribute to grandfather. I used the remaining money to buy equipment, an old espresso machine, simple wooden tables and chairs, and a few ocean paintings on the walls. The early days were challenging, learning to make lattes, roasting beans, greeting customers with a smile. "New place? Good luck," a local elderly woman said on opening day. My heart raced with fear of failure, but gradually regular customers grew. Early morning fishermen, late afternoon tourists. I handled everything myself, feeling a simplicity I'd never known before. No more stressful meetings, no more contract worries. Every morning I opened the cafe myself, brewed the first coffee for me, and greeted customers with a calmness I hadn't possessed before. Dawn light filtered through the windows. The aroma of coffee filled the air, and the distant sound of waves carried in. "Black coffee?" I'd ask a regular fisherman, smiling lightly. He'd nod. "As always, boss." Those moments were simple but meaningful. I was no longer the wealthy Stephen being hunted, just a friendly cafe owner in a small town. Evenings after closing, I often walked along the beach listening to the waves, feeling the slow pace of life and realizing I was no longer stretched thin by responsibilities, expectations, or anyone's control. Sand soft underfoot, salty sea breeze, I'd pause to watch the sunset and think about what I'd been through. Losing my job, the inheritance, the lawsuit, the betrayals. "I survived," I whispered, my heart warm with pride. My new life was free from toxic relationships, free from struggle or defense. Just peace and self-mastery that I'd paid a steep price to earn. No harassing family, no fake Isabella, no high-pressure company, just the cafe, the ocean, and days of freedom. I read more books, learned guitar, even joined a local running club. "Where are you from?" a new friend asked. I smiled. "From far away, but this is home now." My heart still ached occasionally when remembering the past, but the pain faded gradually, like waves erasing footprints in the sand. One afternoon, watching the sunrise on the beach, the sun rising over the horizon, painting the water red, I sat on a rock, reflecting on everything, realizing that family or love only has value when accompanied by respect and honesty. Blood ties or promises don't give anyone the right to manipulate, exploit, or hurt me in the name of kinship. Leaving wasn't running away. It was the only way to preserve my self-respect and clarity. I thought of my parents. They chose to favor Mateo, chose betrayal. Of Isabella, she chose money over real feelings. "I chose myself," I whispered, the sea breeze carrying the words away. From then on, I gave myself, and anyone else, this advice. Don't accept relationships that force you to endure, explain, or doubt yourself just because you fear loneliness. Learn to set boundaries, even with family, because peace isn't something granted. It's something you must protect yourself. I remembered the sleepless nights of worry, the times I was insulted and deceived, all teaching me that loneliness is sometimes better than a toxic relationship. Now in Cannon Beach, I live with that peace, and it's worth everything.